The morning sun had just begun to climb over the quiet town when Amir wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked around his small, dusty workshop. He was a struggling mechanic, known not for wealth but for his honesty and hard work. Business had been slow for weeks, and he worried how he would pay the rent or even buy groceries. Still, he opened his garage every day with hope in his heart. That morning, a black luxury car stopped right in front of his workshop. It was a sight that didn't belong there. Polished, elegant, and clearly from another world. Amir rushed outside expecting a wealthy customer, but when the door opened, he saw a woman in her early 30s carefully step out, leaning heavily on a cane. Her left leg trembled with each movement. Her face was pale but graceful, her eyes filled with both strength and pain. "Excuse me," she said softly, her voice shaking slightly. "My car broke down a few miles back and I could barely drive it here. Can you take a look?" Amir nodded immediately. "Of course, miss. Please sit down inside. I'll check it right away." While he worked, he couldn't help glancing at her through the open garage door. She sat quietly, her hands clasped on her cane, staring at the ground as if carrying a heavy burden far greater than a broken car. Amir noticed the faint scars on her wrist, the tired look in her eyes, the kind of pain that couldn't be fixed with tools. The car's engine was indeed damaged badly, but Amir decided he would fix it no matter how long it took. "It'll take some hours," he said gently. "You can rest here. I'll make tea." The woman looked up, surprised by his kindness. "You don't have to." He smiled warmly. Sometimes tea heals more than machines. For the first time, she smiled back. In that quiet exchange between a poor mechanic and a wounded stranger, something invisible sparked, a connection built not on money or power, but on kindness. Neither of them knew that this small moment would change both of their lives forever. It was the day destiny parked right outside Amir's garage. The hours passed slowly as the sun climbed higher in the sky, filling Amir's little workshop with golden light and the familiar smell of grease and metal. He worked with quiet focus, his hands moving skillfully under the hood of the luxury car. Every turn of the wrench echoed through the garage like a heartbeat. He wasn't just repairing a machine. He was trying to ease the pain he had seen in the woman's eyes. The woman, whose name he had just learned was Leila, sat on an old wooden chair near the entrance, her cane resting across her lap. She watched him silently, occasionally wincing from the pain in her leg. There was something deeply comforting about the way Amir worked. Steady, calm, without complaint. "You work so hard," Leila said softly after a while. Amir smiled without looking up. "If I stop working, who will help your car live again?" Leila chuckled faintly, but there was sadness in her laughter, a shadow of something long and heavy. For a moment, silence filled the room again, broken only by the hum of distant traffic and the whistle of a kettle boiling on a small stove. Amir poured 2 cups of tea and handed one to her. "It's a serious problem," he said gently, "but I'll fix it." "Don't worry." Leila accepted the cup carefully. "Thank you. You didn't even ask for money." He looked at her with a calm smile. "Sometimes people need help more than money." She looked down into her tea, her eyes reflecting the flicker of light from the open door. "You know," she murmured, "some people repair more than just cars. Some repair hearts." Amir laughed lightly, embarrassed. "Maybe, but I just do what I can." For the first time in years, Leila felt warmth inside her, not from the tea, but from kindness. The world she came from was full of people who smiled for money, who spoke only when there was something to gain. But this man, he didn't know her name, her past, or her wealth, yet he cared. As the sun began to set, Leila watched him working again, a simple man in a torn shirt, covered in oil, yet richer in heart than anyone she had ever known. Evening settled quietly over the small town. The orange glow of the sunset painted the workshop walls, while Amir continued his work with unwavering patience. His hands were tired, but his heart was content. Leila had fallen silent, lost in thought as she watched him move, a man of few words, yet full of quiet strength. After hours of repair, Amir finally straightened up, wiping sweat and grease from his face. "It's done," he said with a tired but proud smile. "Your car should run smoothly now." Leila stood slowly, leaning on her cane. She approached him, her eyes soft and full of something unspoken. "You've done so much for me today," she said. "How much do I owe you?" Amir shook his head quickly. "You owe me nothing. You were in trouble, and I helped. That's all." Her eyebrows rose slightly. "But the parts, the hours," he interrupted gently. "Sometimes the world gives back in other ways. Maybe you'll help someone else one day." Leila stared at him, stunned. No one had ever refused her money before. Not since she became who she was, the secret heir to one of the country's largest business empires. To her, money had always been the only language people understood. Yet here stood a man who spoke another, the language of humanity. "Amir," she said softly, "you don't know how rare people like you are." He smiled shyly. "Maybe, but being kind doesn't cost anything." A moment of silence passed. The golden light faded, replaced by the calm of dusk. Leila reached into her purse, pulled out a small envelope, and placed it on his workbench. "Please, just take this for your time," she insisted. He looked at it for a long moment, then shook his head. "Keep it. Maybe you'll come back one day for tea, not repairs." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "Maybe I will." As she slowly got into her car and drove away, Amir stood in the doorway, watching the taillights fade into the darkening road. He had no idea that the woman he had just helped was a billionaire, and that his small act of kindness had changed the course of his life forever. Somewhere above, Leila's private jet waited, and soon so would destiny. Weeks passed, and life for Amir went back to its usual rhythm, the hum of engines, the smell of oil, and the same quiet struggle to make ends meet. Yet something had changed in him. Every evening, as he sipped tea outside his garage, he thought of Leila, the graceful woman with kind eyes who had vanished as suddenly as she'd appeared. He wondered if she had ever reached home safely, if her legs still hurt, or if she even remembered the poor mechanic who fixed her car without charge. One afternoon, the sound of engines roared from above. The people in the street looked up as a sleek private jet circled the small town before landing at the nearby airstrip. Moments later, a convoy of black cars rolled toward Amir's workshop. He paused, confused, as the dust settled and a familiar figure stepped out, elegant, radiant, walking without a cane. It was Leila. She approached him with a smile that could light the whole town. "You said I should come back for tea," she said softly. "I hope the offer still stands." Amir blinked in disbelief. "Leila, you're walking. You look completely different." She nodded, eyes glistening. "After that day, I went through surgery and therapy abroad. Your kindness gave me the courage to fight again, to believe that I could stand on my own feet. You repaired more than my car, Amir. You repaired my hope." Tears welled in his eyes, though he tried to hide them behind a smile. "I just did what anyone should do," he murmured. Leila shook her head gently. "No, not everyone would." Then she handed him an envelope, not one of money, but of opportunity. Inside was a deed to a new, modern garage, complete with tools, staff, and a business license under his name. Amir stared at her, speechless. "I can't accept this." "You already earned it," she said warmly. Sometimes fate rewards the pure of heart in ways they never expect. As she turned to leave, her jet waiting once again to carry her away, Amir stood there, stunned, humbled and deeply grateful. Above him, the plane lifted into the sunset, and with it, the story of a billionaire's gratitude into mechanics. Kindness took flight forever. Months later, Amir's life had transformed beyond anything he could have imagined. The new garage, gifted by Leila, stood proudly at the edge of town, gleaming with fresh paint and modern equipment. The once-forgotten mechanic now had workers. Customers lined up daily, and a reputation built not on wealth, but on honesty and compassion. Yet even with success surrounded him, Amir remained the same humble man, kind, grounded, and grateful. One cool evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Amir sat outside his new workshop, sipping tea from the same chipped cup he had used for years. The golden light reflected on the signboard above. Amir's workshop, where hearts are repaired to. He smiled quietly. Life had come full circle. Just then, the distant roar of a private jet echoed through the sky. Amir looked up instinctively and smiled. He didn't need to see her face to know who it was. Somewhere up there, Leila was flying again, strong, free, and happy. She had changed his world forever. But more importantly, his kindness had changed hers. Moments later, his young apprentice ran up holding a letter. "Sir, this just arrived from overseas." Amir unfolded it carefully. Inside was a handwritten note. "Dear Amir, you once told me tea heals more than machines. You were right. I drink mine every morning now, and I think of the man who reminded me that humanity is the truest form of wealth. Never change who you are. Leila." Amir's eyes glistened as he folded the letter and looked toward the sky. "Thank you," he whispered. A gentle breeze brushed past, carrying the scent of oil and jasmine, a reminder that goodness, once given, always finds its way back. He turned toward his apprentices, smiling warmly. "Come on, everyone, let's finish today's work with love. Every car we fix might change a life." The scene faded with the sound of laughter, tools clinking, and hope filling the air. If you love this heart-touching story, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share. Channel name, Soul of Kindness, where every story reminds us that one small act of compassion can change the world.